If you're a finance lead in a startup or scale up, then you have probably asked to present finance updates to the business, to the board, to the leadership team many times. And I can tell you right now, a 50-page slide deck is not going to be well received. You do have to be quite strategic when putting this together. So today I wanted to give you 7 practical tips for running sharper, more strategic finance update. Basically, the kind that will actually get listened to in the QBR or the board meetings or the all hands. So in each of those tips, I'm going to go through what people are doing wrong, what works better, and how to fix your example immediately. And I'll go through that for each of the 7 steps. So make sure you watch to the end of that. Hi, my name's Alysha Randall. I'm a fractional CFO for Fast Growth Consulting, and I also train new and aspiring finance directors or CFOs within startups or scale ups. And I also wrote a book on that exact topic, Financial Leadership Fundamentals, How to Become a CFO in a Startup or Scale Up. So the first tip for this, so whether you're a finance manager, a head of finance, or you're stepping into the CFO role, this is really how you lead the room instead of just reporting the numbers and everyone eye rolling when you walk to the center stage. So the first one is you want to lead with what's changed. So what doesn't work is when you put up your slides and it says, here's a full P&L and balance sheet. I'll walk you through each line. I'll be honest, nobody cares. Everyone will be zoned out by the time you get to your third line. You've lost them before you've actually told them anything that's interesting and actually the stuff that you want people to remember and take away. So what you could start with instead is start with the movement. So the goal here isn't just to read all the accounts. Rather, you want to call out what's changed since your last update. So this is particularly useful if you do these quite regularly, whether that's as part of the leadership team or an all hands or a QBR, whatever it is. If you do these regular finance updates, it's good just to call out the things that have really changed. So instead of just a data dump, you can say, for an example, there are 3 key changes this month. Number 1, runway dropped by 2 months due to a late invoice. Number 2, our gross margin improved by 5 points thanks to better supplier terms. It's often, rather than just being generic, sometimes it's good to actually say which supplier that is, particularly if it's a well-known supplier. And number 3, headcount is flat, but we've got 2 hires starting next week, and you could mention who those hires are. Again, any of those specific details make it much more interesting. Number 2, similar lines, but you really want to pick 3 key messages. Before you even start building, work out what are the 3 things that you really want everyone to take away. You will probably need to repeat those 3 key messages at least 3 times in order for people to remember it. If you're lucky, people will remember 1, but ideally, aim for 3, shoot for gold. So you would mention at the beginning, in the middle, and again at the end. So what doesn't work is, I've included everything in case someone needs it, or here's all of the information. It's too much. No one has the time or the inclination. No one's going to look at the details. So what you want to do instead is as I said, you want to define the 3 things that you want them to remember and act on it. And so frame your update around those 3 things. So you don't want to say, let's start with revenue, then we'll go through the costs, then the gross margin, then the net margin, then the cash, then instead, you want to say, here's what matters this month. The pipeline is strong, but conversion is down. Burn rate is higher than forecast due to timing on marketing spend, and we need to discuss if we pause hiring in ops. So 3 things, and actually people will probably have an opinion on those, particularly if you're speaking to the leadership team. So this really changes your update from just passive reporting and telling everyone what happened last month to strategic leadership. Number 3 is to tailor your audience. What doesn't work is sending exactly the same pack to the board, to the founders, to the department heads. Each group has different priorities, different goals, and a limited attention span. So what you want to do is curate your update to the audience. So the board should be interested, or generally is interested, in risk, cash and cash runway, forecast, and your funding plan. The executive team is often interested in performance versus a plan. Also hiring, sometimes margin as well, particularly if there's been a bit of movement. And your budget holders or departments heads, they just want to know variance to budget and what it means for them, basically. So instead of saying, let me take you through the full 25 slide deck and everybody gets the same, you want to say, you'll find the full P&L in the appendix, but for this session, I'm going to focus on these 5 slides: cash, forecast, margin, trend, and hiring spend, for example. This is where, if you have a reporting tool like Fathom that we use, or Sift, or Spotlight, or ScaleXP, you can create templates for different audiences. So every single month when the numbers are updated, you already have all the different types of reports ready to go that you can tinker with for the specific changes in month. If you wanted to look at any other tech software or finance tech stack that I go through, I did an update relatively recently, and I'll leave a link above and below for that. Number 4 is to highlight decisions needed. So what doesn't work is saying at the end of your presentation, any questions? I can tell you right now, no one knows what to ask. Nothing gets actioned. I don't know how many times I have personally done this and I get crickets. So you instead, what you want to do is be quite direct on what you need input on. So finance isn't reporting, it should be helping people make decisions. So instead of saying, here's the report, let me know if anything stands out or if you have any questions. Instead, you could say, we need your input on these 3 things today. Do we need to proceed with the planned ops hire? Do we need to shift ad spend into Q1 to ease cash pressure? Are we aligned on a reduced revenue target for Q4? Make the decisions the center of the update. And then I can tell you right now, people will be very engaged in this way of setting up your update. Number 5 is to ditch the data dump. This is, again, one of the things that I've kind of mentioned before, but it should be one of the big takeaways because I've seen this quite often. What doesn't work is screenshots of 20-tab Excel models, 6-point font tables, a raw export from Xero or reporting tool. It's not transparent, and this is going to be a hard thing to hear, but it's super lazy and it creates confusion. So what you need to do instead is you want to show summaries, you want to call out line items that have moved, and you want to use simple visuals or bullets. So what's bad? Here's the full P&L report, followed by the balance sheet in detail. What's better? Here's a summary of the key variances this month. SaaS spend was 2K over due to an annual review. Payroll variances was driven by a one-off bonus. Revenue was flat, but ahead of forecast due to upsell in 2 accounts. And maybe have a chart. You're an interpreter, you're not a spreadsheet. Number 6 is to tell a story, not just the numbers. So what doesn't work, and I've seen this in commentary as well, this isn't just presentations. This is very much commentary as well. Again, I've done a video on how to improve your commentary, which I'll leave above and below. But what doesn't work is the statement of fact. Revenue was £183,000. Margin was 53%. Net losses was £71,000. These are just facts. They're not insights. And similar, as I said, similar to writing commentary for the management accounts, you want to add some value. So what you should be doing instead is using those numbers to build a narrative. So what happened? Why did it happen? What's next? So instead of saying churn increased by 2%, you could say churn spiked this month because of a legacy enterprise client leaving. Ideally say who that is. We've already reallocated 2 CS reps to support at-risk customers. So that gives proper context. That's leadership, basically. And then the final recommendation is to use visuals sparingly but smartly. So I have said many times that pictures are better than numbers. But you don't want to be in the situation where you throw 50,000 charts at one slide deck and it's very hard to understand what's going on. So what doesn't work is pie charts for every category, bar charts for things that need graphs for things that don't need bars, slides with 6 different graphs squeezed in there. It's too much visual noise. It makes the data hard to really absorb. So what you should do instead is pick one strong visual and use it to reinforce your key message. So instead of having a 4 slide sequence showing MRR, ARR, CAC, churn, LTV, gross margin, and no commentary, what's better is to say, I've pulled together just one chart. It shows our monthly cash position and forecast to year end. You'll see that we dip below 100K in March, which is why we're flagging this now. And then you can have more discussion points. So the chart is the prompt, not the story. Startups really don't need glossy finance decks. They really just need finance leaders who can communicate really clearly, focus on what matters, and really support the business to make good decisions. So if you want to go back to all of these points, pick maybe 2 or 3 improvements to start with and build on from there. And that's how you really move from a finance manager to a strategic finance leader. If you want to become a confident strategic finance leader in the startup within the next 12 months, start with all of the tips I mentioned above. Secondly, you might want to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I have weekly tips. Every Thursday, I have a video. It's for new and aspiring CFOs who work within startups or scale-ups. The second thing is to check out Financial Leadership Fundamentals. You get clear on what's expected of you and how you can show up as a leader. And at the end of every single chapter, I have got lots of actions that you need to implement immediately. There's a summary, for example, and there is a list of all the actions that you need to put in that you can do straight away. Every single chapter has that. And then finally, take a look at our Financial Leadership Fundamentals course, where you can really fast track your growth and structure and support, and that can really work in the real world. We also have a conversation every single month to go through your specific role and the challenges that you're having. So hopefully you found that useful and hopefully you're able to implement that to help with your presentations going forward. And thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in next week's video. Cheers.